As I head into the session today, we will be covering social media, but in particular we'll be focusing in on Facebook. To those of you that use Facebook, I hope that there'll be a few tips for you to take away. For those of you that are here because you want to learn if social media is all about dancing on the tables, I'm more than happy for you to tap me on the shoulder at some point and say, could we have a social media 101, and what is social media and how does it all fit together? As we kick off, we're all at a networking event today, and I'd like to draw you to the TNG standard, do you want to? Because I'd like to draw the analogy, and one of my slides will point to that, around why we are all here. We are all here to grow our business, to gain more clients, to improve profits, to have our business referred to you, to utilize large sales teams, to reduce our advertising costs, to network with other businesses, and to grow greater relationships. And I think it's important to understand that as we look at those, social media is absolutely no different, because social media can do exactly those things for your business. And social media, whilst everyone's talking, I spoke to somebody earlier on who said their franchise is really pushing social media as the be-all and end-all. Social media is really one arm of your marketing drive for an organization. It's an important drive, but it's not going to be the great crusader moving forward. It's part of all the other marketing strategies that you've currently used for your business. My company, Net Branding, our focus is on removing that fear, of ensuring that small to medium-sized businesses are able to embrace social media and to do what they believe is right for their business with social media. So we work alongside businesses in terms of moving you forward at the rate or the pace that you'd like to move forward at. So what is social media in essence? Social media defines the activities that integrate technology, social interaction, the sharing of words, images, videos, and audio. And to that extent, I'm leading into our next speaker, because social media is the infrastructure, and onto that infrastructure we will be placing content at some point in time. Now, the old, was it George Orwell, 1984, was that the book, or 1994? He wrote about not all people are created equal, some people are created more equal than others. And if we look at the elements of social media, not all elements of social media are exactly the same. We have our blogging platforms, which is WordPress, and Twitter, which is a microblogging site. An underutilized element of social media, and hopefully as we get through the presentation you'll understand why. I do believe that blogs are the secret social media ingredient in the whole makeup. You have your networking platforms, your Facebook, your LinkedIn for your business networking. You have your bookmarking platforms, your publishing platforms, and your collaborative platforms. And each of those platforms has a very different and unique function in terms of a social media strategy. Remembering that as we jump into the social media thing, our tendency is to run off and go and create a Facebook page. Is that the right platform for you? Should you really be in that environment, or is LinkedIn more important for your business? So it is important to, as we with any management process, really think about the fact of what is the strategic process that you need to be following for your business before we hop into this new wave. Let's look at vintage social networking and let's place it in perspective. We had LinkedIn. It was our old Filofax. Foursquare, who's ever used Foursquare? That's the booking in and checking into places. Well, we used to do that on a map. Instagram, where we shared pictures. No different to putting them on our desk. WordPress, which is our blogging tool. Twitter, microblogging. Facebook, our old address book. Skype, don't forget Skype, the old telephone. So whilst we're utilizing all of these new buzzwords, if we actually take it back into the original context in which it sits, all we're doing is doing the same things that we've done for years and years and years and years, but what we're really doing with that is we're doing it on different platforms. And if we can get our head around that, then it doesn't become as scary and as overwhelming as what it used to be. So I think that's quite a nifty little slide to put it into perspective. Social media and the users. 1.5 billion users globally. Now that incorporates all the tools, and let's talk about the main ones, the YouTube, the LinkedIn, the Twitter, and the Facebook. Those are primarily the main ones. And if I'm often asked the question, which of these tools do I believe will last the distance? And I really, really believe that Facebook is going to be one of those longer standing tools. We're seeing a lot of social media networks come to the market. But for me, Facebook is becoming the intricate entry point to a lot of those tools, to a lot of the features that we're using on the internet. Facebook currently claims 64% of those users. So why wouldn't we want our business to be in that place? Social media year in 2012, 1 billion monthly active users on Facebook. 47% of those are female. And the average age of the Facebook user was 40.5 years of age. So we often think about the youth, and Mark referred to the youth wanting to be in this environment. They do, but we have a large percentage in probably most of our target markets that are sitting in that tool. Twitter, 2 million active monthly users. And interestingly enough, 9.66 million tweets during the opening of the London Olympics. Who would have thought 10 years ago that you'd have that level of social media engagement out of a major event? 123 heads of states have Twitter accounts. If we look at any form of event, take the Christchurch earthquake, what was the first social media platform people turned to? It was Twitter. And that's primarily how the reporters got the news as to what was happening in that environment. And we think social media is not impacting on our lives. LinkedIn, 187 million active LinkedIn members. Their average age is 44.2 years. So it gives you an indication of the volume and where the target market sits for those. Having said that, some of my other presentations, I talk about the infrastructure that you can create to easily manage your social media solution, and similar to what I've done for T&G, which is a one point of setup, and from that point you can distribute the information out, so it's really, really easy to manage. The focus of this presentation is not to talk about the complete social media infrastructure, but to hone in on Facebook and to give you some takeaway tips for Facebook. So as we look at Facebook, we need to consider a few things. Often I am still amazed people confusing the two concepts. We have business pages and we have personal pages, and they're very different. And the reason that they're different is because they're utilized for a different purpose. If you're a business, you need a business page on Facebook. If you are a dog breeder and you want Fido to have his own little Facebook page, he doesn't have a personal Facebook page. He's not allowed a personal Facebook page. He needs to have a proper page, a proper business page. So there are dogs for courses and horses for courses, but if you're a business, you need a business page. If Facebook comes along and identifies that T&G is operating under a personal page, there is a potential for that page to be removed. And Facebook is heavily focused on cleaning up the Facebook environment. No duplicate accounts, so one person shouldn't have more than one account. The one area we haven't focused in is groups. I went off to a client site and we elected, because they weren't ready to do the big Facebook launch, but they wanted to utilize Facebook for their internal staff. They found that as their reps were hitting the ground, they were identifying that Mr. Blogs needed paper and this one needed something else, and it was a mechanism of them for their reps on the ground to communicate with one another in a confined and private environment, almost like the intranet of old. They elected to use Facebook groups. So there are multiple sources within Facebook that you can utilize to manage your business effectively. But please remember that a personal page is very different from a business page. That changes slightly if you're a lawyer or an accountant, where you're marketing yourself as a professional person. And then we need to discuss which is more appropriate for your brand and your online presence. One of the tips I give you is secure your Facebook URL as quickly as possible. Does anyone not know what a URL is? Okay. That's the www.facebook.com/something. Often I see people say, follow me on Facebook, www.facebook.com/167932448. Who on earth is going to do that? No one's going to do that. Whereas if you go www.facebook.com/Kathy Millett, it's a lot easier to remember. So go into the tool as soon as you possibly can, and sometimes there are criteria around when you can do it, and it still amazes me. I go in to do it for one client and it says I need to wait until we get 25 likes, and I go in for the next client and I can do it straight away. So it really depends on what server you're operating off with Facebook, and sometimes the criteria between one server that Facebook is on versus the next server is actually different as they roll out different software. The most important thing is fan engagement, and this sets out the framework for fan engagement. Be where your consumers are spending the most time. Share content aligned with their interests and the portability of that content across multiple networks. Now let's hone in on that. We understand that the highest time people are on Facebook is in that period when they're watching television. Do you want your brand to be displayed to them whilst they're busy doing that? So be where your consumers are spending time. If we look at the graphs, more people are spending time in Facebook than on Google. So we really want to ensure that our brand is out there at that point in time. Share content aligned with their interests. If I am a commercial building real estate, the people that have aligned or liked my business are probably interested in real estate. So they might be interested in plumbing and all the other aspects related to the business that I'm in. They are probably not interested in art. So if I'm going to be sharing information with the audience that has aligned themselves with my group, we really need to ensure that we share information in a related industry. If I'm a spa, a health spa, I'm probably not going to share information about a plumber. I'm probably going to share why carrots are good for you and what is the benefit of beta carotene. So ensure that you're sharing content aligned with the interest. Vary that content. So ensure that it's not the same old sell, 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 sell. Remember, the aim is engagement. We want people to engage with us. Enable social interaction. The idea to get people to connect with you and to have your brand top of mind is to get them to comment and to like and connect and to follow your calls to action. And there are some tips and techniques around what you can be doing in that area. Social transactions. Make your Facebook fans feel special. Give them a deal. Bundle services together. If I'm a massage or a spa, perhaps I can bundle the services with the nail bar down the road and say, to our joint Facebook fans, here's a unique special that we're only offering to you, because that keeps them on board and it keeps them at a rate where they actually feel that you're targeting them and you're providing them value add for being in that space. Social endorsement. Remember that we want to get the share. So we want to try and deliver images that they will share, content that they will share, because it's that sharing that moves into the viral space that actually extends the brand. And often when I do my social media 101, I talk about extending your reach. And when you have, let's say, 100 potential fans on your Facebook page, the reach of those 100 fans is probably about 20,000 people. So if you can get them to engage with you and to be part of your brand, you are extending that ripple pool around where your products and services lie. So social endorsement is important. But what's the reality as we face that? And this slide I probably would not have shared with you 8 months ago. Facebook has changed. And the reality that we are is that 16% of brand posts reach fans. When you go and put something on your page and you wonder why you're actually not getting a response to it, acknowledge that only 16% of brand posts reach your fans. That increases when they start engaging with you, but as a start, only 16% of people see what you're doing. There are ways to counter that. 70% of fans, once they have liked your page, if you are not interesting enough, they will never ever engage with you again. So likes are important, but they're not everything. You need to work with that audience to do something with them to take them to that next level. We've listened to the consumers and we've published content. Engage with them. That's probably the area that people or businesses with business pages don't do. They think that they've got a page and that's where it all stops, but engagement is important. How do you do that? Remember that once you have posted something onto your Facebook page, it lives for 3 hours and 3 hours only. And most people go, I never knew that. Combined with the fact that we said only 16% of the people see that, and only 30% of fans return to brand, how can you make sure that they find out about this event? So take Mark in this particular event. If Facebook was the only way that he was going to be publishing this, my recommendation to Mark would be to ensure that every 3 hours, for 2 to 3 days, he placed this event on his Facebook page. Does anyone have any questions around that? Because that's a very important aspect to making sure that you are found in that online space.
Can you automate that?
Yes, well you can set it up and schedule it to go out. The one way around it is to ensure that you have a blog, because the blog will give you search engine traction to that event. So when people are looking for training, they will find it. You can not automate it, but you can set it up in advance so that it can come through. And you can also repeatedly send it out from your blog through to your Facebook page. So there are mechanisms which you can put it up. But the importance is, don't believe that because you've put something on your Facebook page that it will be there forever.
Doesn't that mean that if they keep receiving, isn't there a risk that you could actually
Cheese them off.
Yeah, because if they're getting the same message several times.
You need to alter the message. So you might go, want to learn more about social media? Have you considered registering for, and you link them through to where they're going to register. The next one could be wanting to find more about Facebook tips. So you change your message slightly, but be driving the call to action to the same place for them to do what you want them to do.
Is there a specific time in the day that you should send those messages?
Yes, there is, and that's very dependent on your page. So if you are, again, Mark, with his TNG group, he probably wants to hit people really early in the morning or really late at night when they're looking at Facebook. If you are a spa, you probably want to hit around 10 o'clock in the morning when mums have just dropped the kids off at school and they're back and that major population is on Facebook. So it depends on the business that you're in, and that will only come through a tried and tested mechanism by seeing what your reach is. Make them feel special, as we've said already, by specials offered to them. Hints for engagement. Keep your status update short. No long-winded things. Make sure it's short and to the point. Have a call to action. Give them something to do. Even if you're showing them a picture of a gorgeous sunset because you think that that's what you're going to do for engagement, ask them a question. Where do you think this picture was taken? When last have you seen a sunset like this? Like if you think that this is a good picture. So ask for their engagement and provide them with a call to action. And most times direct them to your website or your blog. Images. Use high impact images, not logos. They want to see people. Facebook is around social. They don't want to see things that are not social. Stay engaged. If you've got a bit of a conversation going, hop into that content and hop into that communication and start firing off questions. You know, great comment. What do you think about this? Or have you thought about something else? So be involved in that content. Remember that the more engagement you get, the higher percentage chance you have of that user actually seeing your next post. And you can increase the levels of that 30%, 16 to 30% range up to 70 or 80% range if you start engaging with those particular users. Boost your posts as sponsored stories. That's one of the ways that you can increase the traction, but that's going to cost you money. It's not going to cost you a lot. It's probably about between $5 and $15 a post, but you can actually increase your engagement by paying Facebook to promote your posts. Interesting though, sometimes when we have promoted posts for clients, people don't understand how they're there. Although they come up in the newsfeed as a sponsored story, I have had a few clients where grannies typed in, "How did you get into my newsfeed? Get off it." And so there is a mechanism that people don't understand why these sponsored stories are actually there. And it's, again, that's a training and an education process. Huh? 70% of people are on mobile devices. It still amazes me when people spend the money to do a sweepstake or a competition on Facebook and you can't enter it because you're on a mobile device. Why do it? Consider the audience. Is your website mobile friendly? Is your blog mobile friendly? Make sure wherever you're pointing them to that they're not going to get an error message when they're on a mobile device, because then you've cut out 70% of the 30% that you've actually attracted. Create an opportunity, social endorsement, create an opportunity for positive referrals. Share buttons need to be easily accessible. Make sure they can share it out onto Facebook. Make sure they can share it out onto LinkedIn, and they can share it wherever it needs to go. As we look at our Facebook page, and excuse me for putting a little bit of a Facebook page on the top, some takeaway tips. In your About section, which is that area up there, is your website clearly identified? Can they get to your Facebook page and immediately identify where your website is? Your About section, are you providing links to your other social media channels? Are you driving people to your other social media channels? Your cover photo. Everyone know where your cover photo is? It's this one, the one right above the strip at the top of Facebook. There are rules and there are guidelines around that. Make sure you conform. No telephone numbers, no websites, percentage of written word on that cover page. So ensure that you're in compliance with the Facebook guidelines. Cover photo description. If somebody clicks on that, don't lose the opportunity for them to go to a description with nothing in it. Put your phone number in there. Put your website in there. Make sure it's as easy for them to contact you off your Facebook page as it would be off your website. Who's reached a Facebook page, been really interested in the product or service that you see, and not being able to find out how you actually contact the organisation? Has anyone ever done that? It's incredibly frustrating, and that business has lost an opportunity. Promotions, my big bugbear as people do promotions in that Facebook space. Do it by the rules. Facebook has got incredibly stringent guidelines around what promotions are. Promotions must be administered by external applications. So you need to actually acquire an app to run a Facebook promotion. Promotions should include standard statements. Example, you will not notify the person on Facebook that you have won the competition. You need to seek their consent to release who that person is on Facebook. So it should be a telephone call to the person. No conditions of entry other than liking a page and a few more. They can't be forced to make a purchase from you to enter the competition. It needs to be a pretty much standard level of entry. You can ask them to give you a bit of information about themselves, and you can ask them to like your page. No Facebook features should be used for that competition. Who's seen one? Like my picture and share it to all your friends and you can win something. Who's seen that one? How do they track that? They've got no way of tracking it. It's not a fair competition and it's against the Facebook guidelines. Like my page to win. You can't do that, because how again do you choose which person is going to be the winner? So it needs to be completely independently managed through an application. And again, as I've said, remember all competitions should be accessible via a mobile device. Test it, and if it's not, take the competition down, because you're wasting a prize. And this one, like gated. Make sure that if somebody is entering your competition, that they actually like your page, because otherwise, why are you doing it? If you're not going to be growing your likes, there's no value in that. Again, I was called to a site and they said to me, Kathy, we don't understand. We put up a trip around the world. We had 1,000 entries to our competition, but we only had 30 likes increase on our page. Guess what they didn't do? They didn't force a like for people to enter their competition, and they wasted over $10,000 on a prize because they had no long-term engagement with the people that had entered the competition. I've been naughty, Mark, and my business cards are all at home. So what I thought I would do, does everyone know what that is? Has anyone used one of those? Has anyone got a scan reader on their phone? Would somebody like to scan that? Okay, QR readers are an interesting way of directing traffic to where you want them to go, and I hope it will work on the back light. It's really valuable for real estate agents. It's really valuable for people who want to direct you to somewhere. And if you can tell me where it goes to. Once Lisa's. I hope so too. Is it going?
Yeah.
What has it done?
Your contact and your website.
Yep, so it's given you my business card online.
Yeah.
So from Lisa doing that,
So
she
how
can...
you put your phone in the bowl, please?
No, but there is one on my business card.
So another really easy way, if you have a snapshot of that when you're out and about and you don't carry your business cards, people can scan that and they will immediately have access to all the content information that you want to provide them with. So there are other ways of doing it, but QR codes, don't underestimate the value of QR codes for your business in terms of driving traffic to where it needs to go. Now, with that being said, how am I doing for time, Mark? Cool. Any questions? I've been good. Any questions?
I've got a basic question.
There's no basic question.
I'm just going to check out that we're doing it right. The business pages need to be linked to a personal page, is that correct?
No, they don't.
They used to be.
And yes, they do. So in the old, when you set up a page, you had a personal page and you linked it to a business page. There is a way that you can go in and create a separate business page, but the level of function and functionality in that separate business page kind of limits you to a certain level of functionality. And I always recommend that people go in with a personal page and you link it to a business page. It just gives you that little bit more flexibility. Important though on those smartphone devices is the Facebook app has changed. And so if you're managing business pages, download the Page Manager app because there's different functionality in both those pages. So don't think that because you've got Facebook on your page that you're effectively going to be able to manage your business pages via your Facebook app. By your phone, you're going to need a page manager, and probably you're going to need the message manager as well. So you'll need 3 apps on your phone, whereas before you could do it with 1. Andy?
I believe when you first started making business pages that you still got a like on a business page. So that the business page was still a closed kind of environment, and you needed so many likes to be able to then turn it into a more of an open website type one where anybody could look at it. Like then the likes became fans. Does that still happen, or is a business page open right from day one, or is it a closed system that you have to be invited into to like it, and then after so many likes it and can be converted into an open.
Okay. I think there might be a concept of groups in there, because groups are more of a closed environment. Facebook pages are generally quite open, and to me it's your website within that Facebook environment. The area of the number of fans that you need to have really navigates when you can secure your URL and those sorts of elements. The one thing though that I would caution every single business owner on is buying fans. Please don't do it. What you're doing is you're buying 5,000 people that live in India. That's not going to promote your business. They're not going to come and get your plumbing services. The other thing that you're doing is, I had another person come to me and they couldn't understand why they dropped from 6,000 likes to 2,000 in one weekend. And they just dropped. And if you take on a social media company and you suddenly see that your likes go through the roof, question them and re-question them around why that's happened, because there are also social media companies out there that go out and buy likes. Don't do it, because you're not going to get the level of engagement from those people. So make sure that you are growing your likes systematically and organically. Don't head out. Same thing with Twitter. Don't go and buy Twitter followers. Make sure that they're relevant to your business. Andy, does that sort of?
Used to be you needed 30, Andy, I think, to be able to, people say, oh, can you like my page, I want to get to this status or whatever. I'm not sure it applies.
It's to get to the URL.
30 still?
Mm.
That's what Kathy's saying, so to get the...
It gives you more information. It gives you a statistics page. It gives you an ability to secure your URL, and it gives you some other things. But people can still see that page. Yes.
If you're starting a page from scratch and you have zero likes, how do you build your first set of likes? How do you get your page to be known to the people you want your page?
Absolutely. So you take your friends to the pub and you say you'll buy them a beer if they like your Facebook page, and you have a little QR code and you say just scan this and it's going to take you to my page and like it and I'll buy you a beer.
So someone you can say, if you're having a call with a client, you can just say, would you just check our Facebook page?
Absolutely. Recommend it, like it. I'm being a little bit facetious and I'm teasing you, but ultimately there are ways that you can do it. If you're a florist, you could perhaps have a little sign at the front of your desk saying, thanks very much for visiting us. If you'd like 10% off the purchase today, please like our Facebook page. And so they can show you that they've scanned the QR code, that they've liked the page, and there they go. It's a different form of buying likes. The other way of doing it is to run an advertising campaign in Facebook. Facebook's probably one of the cheapest advertising environments, and I normally work at about $1 a like. So although you're paying 30 or 40 cents a click, not every one of those clicks will convert to a like, but it's well worth having a consistent advertising campaign, whether it's $1 a day or whether it's a few dollars a day, to grow your likes. I worked with a luxury lodge down in the Marlborough Sounds, and we kicked off their page in November, and I think we were at about 1,500 likes, purely at working through Facebook advertising to grow the likes. That particular business, because it's a cool business and people want to associate themselves with that sort of luxury environment, has actually had a phenomenal amount of growth in their bookings as they move forward. So it does work as long as you're engaging, you're getting the likes up, but you're not suddenly purchasing the 5,000 likes from India or Argentina.